Hello, this is part number 6 in our series on Santeria. What do you know about it? And until recently, I knew nothing about it, at least not very much. But because of circumstances, I came in contact with the necessity of finding out about it to help someone who had come for some counseling on it. And so what you're hearing now is the result of the research I've been doing, which has been a little more considerable than I really thought I might have to get into. It is an extraordinarily complex and detailed kind of religious system. So I'm going to hit some of the highlights. And in this part, we're going to be looking at magic. We're going to be taking a look at magic and the seance, which is both are integral and necessary parts of Santeria. Magic. It is a magical system, and it is what's called sympathetic magic, or imitative, or homeopathic magic. And this sympathetic magic is based on two so-called, I want to emphasize, laws of similarity and contact. Similarity might be described as like produces like. For example, when a spell or a curse is to be cast on an enemy, then a figure is made to simulate or be similar to the enemy, and it's usually made out of wax. Now, you think of voodoo, and you think of the voodoo doll and people stabbing things pins into it. Well, they're very related, as you might imagine. The simulated figure is then tortured, stabbed, and so on, and it's thought that whatever happens to the wax figure is expected similarly then to happen to the victim of the spell or curse. Or a stone might be used, named, maybe for the person, maybe their name written on it, and then the stone kicked around the house. And so the idea is the same would happen to the individual. That's magical thinking, similarity. And then the other form is contact magic, contact magic. The idea that something that has been in physical contact with an individual, if you act upon that item, then you're influencing the person who owned that, like a piece of clothing, and especially a shoe. I don't know how the shoe got to be such a big deal, but the shoe. So you take the shoe, and you do whatever you want to the shoe, and because it has contact with that individual, then what happens to the shoe or other item of clothing or whatever happens to the individual as well. So you see the idea of sympathetic, imitative, homeopathic magic. Faith is required for this. You have to trust in the power of the Orisha. The Orisha, that saint that is placated through the offering, which we're going to get into all of that in a little while. So that is the fundamental nature of magic. Now, black magic, we try to distinguish between neutral magic, white magic, and black magic. And so black magic is the term used where harm is intended to the victim. White magic, for example, let's say when love is sought. But I thought, well, wait a minute. You're going to cast a spell on somebody to get them to love you. All right? It's not based on relationship, getting to know people, falling in love. A spell's being cast. It seems to me that individual is victimized. And I've read stories about how this takes place, and most of the time it's a man trying to get a woman, but I've read otherwise, women trying to get men, and so somehow they come together. And very interesting how that might take place. They come together, and they'll get together and get hooked up, have their sex and so on, but then, and sometimes get married, but then the relationship not last because there was no mutuality, there was no bonding formed. It was on the basis of some kind of spell. Never let it be thought that the demonic kingdom does not have power. In fact, Jesus referred to Satan as the prince and power of the air. And the demonic was able to do certain magical feats. We see that in the Old and New Testaments. In the Old with Moses and Aaron and the court of the Pharaoh, in the New Testament in different places like Acts 16. Oh, there's all kinds of situations where this sort of thing is seen. But it is real no distinction. It is an artificial one between white and black magic. So Santerias will intend to make a difference between good and evil magic, but it really doesn't hold up. Now, let me get into the seance. The seance. You know, a seance. People get together, they hold hands, close their eyes, in usually a dark room, and all kinds of maybe ambiance and atmosphere be created. Well, the seance, very, very popular in Santeria. It is the spiritual mass of Santeria. They sit around a table, and they use cigar smoke. I don't know if this is a Cuban influence or not, but they'll use cigar smoke, and the Santero or the Santero will blow smoke, cigar smoke, around or on an individual. That is supposed to, like holy water, cleanse. Cleanse from what? It's sort of an artificial cleansing from evil spirits. We're safe. See, we got holy water. We're blowing the cigar smoke, and gives the impression, the sense that we're safe here. We're safe. So they cleanse things, and they will read certain prayers, often from a fellow who was a spiritualist, a French spiritualist by the name of Allan Kardec, Kardec. And he wrote these various kinds of prayers, and so that the Egun, or the departed dead, and they begin to appear. They begin to appear and actually interact with the participants. Now, this is what I've read by Santerians, and it does not appear that it was intended to be a sham or smoke and mirrors, but what they actually experienced in that seance, and by the way, is one of the motivating factors for people to become involved in Santeria, because what is happening, you're actually encountering spiritual entities. Not only that, but they interact. And I have a sentence down here in the paper I wrote on this. To a skeptic, such revelation is overwhelming. They appear, they begin to walk around with eyes open. I don't know about that, but eyes open, and talk to those that are seated at the table and actually engage in conversation. Here's what some Santerians have reported, that the Egun, or these spirits of the dead, the holy dead, will speak gutturally, quote, gutturally, often using African words with a Spanish accent, and they will treat the participants of the seance as though they were their slaves. Well, that is the end of this program. So long.